The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, golden liquid spreading like spilled dreams across my sister's pristine engagement party. But it wasn't the broken crystal that made 200 guests gasp. It was my 7-year-old daughter Lily, standing in the center of that glittering crowd, tears streaming down her face as she shouted words that would change everything. "My mommy is not a nobody. She's a hero!" 3 hours earlier, I'd been standing outside the Riverside Country Club, smoothing down my 5-year-old dress, the only formal wear I owned, and wondering if coming here was the biggest mistake of my life. My hands trembled as I held Lily's small fingers, both of us staring at the valet parking filled with Mercedes and BMWs while we'd arrived on the city bus. "Mommy," Lily had whispered, sensing my hesitation, "we don't have to go in if you don't want to." But I had to. Not for me, but to show her that family meant something, even when that family had forgotten you existed for the better part of 5 years. Even when you'd been erased from photos and conversations like a shameful secret. I couldn't have known that within hours a black SUV would pull up to this very entrance, carrying a secret that would flip every sneer, every whispered insult, every cruel laugh into stunned silence. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a single mother and her daughter brought an entire country club to its knees. My name is Sarah Chen, and at 32, I've lived more life than most people experience in twice that time. 5 years ago, I was somebody different, somebody who believed in fairy tales and family loyalty. That was before David left me 8 months pregnant for his secretary, before my parents told me I'd brought shame to the family name, and before my younger sister Victoria decided I was too much of an embarrassment to acknowledge in public. The divorce papers arrived the same day I went into labor with Lily. Alone in that hospital room, listening to my daughter's first cries while signing documents that ended my marriage, I made a promise. I would give this child everything I had, even if all I had was love and determination. Those first years were brutal. With no family support and David having hidden his assets offshore before disappearing to Europe, I took any job I could find. I cleaned offices at night while Lily slept in her carrier beside my supply cart. I worked 3 part-time jobs, studied for my online degree during bathroom breaks, and learned to make 1 chicken last 4 meals. My parents, successful real estate developers who owned half the commercial district downtown, pretended I didn't exist. Victoria, riding high on her Princeton MBA and engagement to William Thornton III, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, had literally crossed the street once to avoid me when I was walking with Lily. But here's what they didn't know. Every night shift, every skipped meal so Lily could eat, every humiliation I endured was forging something unbreakable inside me. While they worried about appearances, I was quietly building something extraordinary. The consulting firm I'd started 8 months ago in our tiny apartment had just landed its biggest client. But I kept it quiet, operating under a corporate name, letting my work speak instead of my face. My clients knew me only as S. Chen Consulting, the firm that had revolutionized supply chain management for 3 Fortune 500 companies in record time. Lily didn't know the details, but she knew Mommy had started helping companies work better, and that we'd soon move somewhere with a real backyard. She was brilliant, my daughter, reading at a 5th grade level, asking questions about everything from astronomy to social justice. The kids at her public school called her the professor with affection. She had my stubborn streak and her father's eyes, though she'd never met him. What Lily did know was that we were different from the families around us. She'd learned young that love came in different packages, that strength wasn't about money, and that dignity couldn't be bought or sold. "We're phoenix birds, Mommy," she'd told me once after I'd explained why we didn't see Grandma and Grandpa. "We rise from the ashes." 7 years old and already wiser than most adults. The invitation to Victoria's engagement party had arrived 3 weeks ago, a gilt-edged card that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. No personal note, just my name spelled wrong, Sarah, not Sarah, and a +1 that felt more like an afterthought than inclusion. I'd thrown it in the trash initially. Then Lily found it. "Is Aunt Victoria getting married?" she'd asked, and the hope in her voice broke my heart. She'd built up this idea of family from books and movies, not understanding that sometimes blood relatives could be crueler than strangers. That's why we were going. Not for Victoria. Not for my parents who would surely be there, but for Lily. To show her that we had nothing to be ashamed of. That we could walk into any room with our heads held high. I just hadn't anticipated how much it would cost us both. The decision to attend hadn't come easily. For 2 weeks after finding the invitation, I'd wrestled with it. Every logical part of my brain screamed that this was a trap, a setup for humiliation, but there was Lily, practicing her party manners with her stuffed animals, excited about wearing her special occasion dress, a clearance rack find I'd altered myself. "Maybe I'll have cousins there," she'd said one evening, and I'd had to turn away to hide my tears. She didn't know Victoria had 2 children she'd never met, or that my brother Michael, who lived just 20 minutes away, had kids Lily's age who didn't know she existed. The night before the party, I'd sat in our tiny living room, laptop open to my company's bank account. The number on the screen still felt surreal. The recent payment from our newest client could buy us security, a real home, a future. But I'd learned that money meant nothing if you wore it wrong, spoke it wrong, or earned it in a way that didn't fit others' narratives. I'd pulled out the dress, steamed it carefully, polished my one pair of decent heels. Lily had insisted on doing my makeup. "You need to sparkle, Mommy." And her careful concentration as she applied my lipstick made me laugh for the first time in days. "What if they're mean to us?" I'd asked her, testing. "Then we kill them with kindness," she'd replied, quoting what I'd taught her about dealing with bullies. "And if that doesn't work, we leave with dignity." The morning of the party, I'd been tempted to call and cancel, claim illness. But Lily was already dressed, twirling in her purple dress, her face bright with anticipation. She'd made a card for Victoria, handmade with construction paper and glitter. "Congratulations, Aunt Victoria," written in her careful handwriting. "Do you think she'll like it?" Lily asked, and I'd lied through my smile. "She'll love it, baby." The bus ride to Riverside took 40 minutes. We sat in the back, Lily pointing out buildings and making up stories about the people we passed. Other passengers smiled at her enthusiasm, and one elderly woman told me, "You've raised her right." If only she knew how wrong everything else had gone. Standing at the country club entrance, watching the valet sneer at our absence of a vehicle, I'd almost turned back. But Lily squeezed my hand 3 times, our secret code for "I love you." And somehow we walked through those gilded doors. The ballroom was exactly what I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, flowers that cost more than my rent, and a crowd that reeked of old money and new prejudices. I saw my parents first. Mom's face tightening when she spotted us. Dad turning away as if we were strangers. Victoria stood at the center, radiant in a designer dress, her perfect children beside her, William's arm around her waist. She saw us, and her smile faltered for just a moment before she whispered something to William. He looked our way and laughed. "Come on, baby," I whispered to Lily. "Let's say congratulations and then we can go." But Lily was already walking forward, her handmade card extended like a peace offering, hope shining in her eyes. That's when I knew this would end badly. I just didn't know how badly. The first cut was subtle, almost elegant in its cruelty. As Lily approached with her card, Victoria's friend Madison, who I remembered from college as someone who'd perfected the art of the backhanded compliment, intercepted her. "Oh, how crafty," Madison said, taking the card with 2 fingers as if it might stain her manicure. "Victoria, your sister's daughter made you something. Isn't that sweet?" The emphasis on sister's daughter instead of niece set the tone. Victoria barely glanced at the card before setting it aside on a table already groaning with Tiffany boxes and designer gift bags. "Sarah," she said, my name sounding foreign in her mouth. "I didn't think you'd actually come." "We wouldn't miss it," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Lily pressed closer to my side, already sensing the undercurrents. "We," Victoria's future mother-in-law, Eleanor Thornton, repeated, materializing beside us in clouds of Chanel perfume. How modern, bringing a child to an adult celebration. But I suppose babysitters are expensive these days. I wanted to come, Lily said, her small voice brave. I wanted to meet my family. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Eleanor laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. Family? Oh, dear child, family is more than just blood. It's about standards. I watched my daughter's face fall, confusion replacing excitement. Around us, conversations had quieted, guests turning to watch like spectators at a gladiator match. Why don't you get some punch, sweetheart? I suggested to Lily, pointing to the refreshment table. But Madison's daughter Chloe, a year older than Lily and dressed in designer everything, blocked her path. That's for invited guests, Chloe announced loudly, not charity cases. Chloe? Madison's rebuke was perfunctory, accompanied by a smile that said she was proud of her daughter's cruelty. My mother finally approached, her face a mask of disapproval. Sarah, why must you always make everything difficult? I'm just standing here, Mom. You know what I mean, coming here dressed like... She gestured vaguely at my outfit. This, and bringing the child to remind everyone of your poor choices. Her name is Lily, I said quietly. Your granddaughter's name is Lily. I don't have a granddaughter, she replied, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I have 2 daughters, one who makes us proud and one who worked 3 jobs to finish her degree, I interrupted, my voice rising slightly. Who built a life from nothing when everyone abandoned her. Built a life? Victoria interjected, joining our toxic circle. Sarah, you clean offices. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. You shop at thrift stores and take the bus. That's not building a life. That's barely surviving. The crowd was fully engaged now, their judgment palpable. I saw my brother Michael by the bar, determinedly looking away. His wife whispered something to him, and they both laughed. Lily had returned to my side, her little hand finding mine. I could feel her trembling. At least I earned everything I have, I said, meeting Victoria's eyes. I didn't marry into it or have Daddy buy it for me. The gasp from the crowd was theatrical. William stepped forward, his prep school accent sharp with disdain. I think you should leave. You're clearly not suited for this environment. Suited? I laughed, but it came out bitter. You're right. I'm not suited for an environment where people measure worth by designer labels and bank accounts instead of character and resilience. Character? Eleanor's voice dripped condescension. My dear, character doesn't pay bills or provide proper opportunities for children. That little girl deserves better than what you can give her. That's when Lily spoke up, her voice small but clear. My mommy gives me everything I need. Madison's laugh was cruel. Everything? Can she give you a proper education, music lessons, travel, or just more handmade cards and thrift store finds? I watched my daughter's eyes fill with tears, watched her process the reality that the family she dreamed of was nothing but a collection of strangers who viewed us as entertainment, as examples of what not to become. Look at them, someone whispered, not quietly enough. The child's dress is obviously homemade, and those shoes. Did you see the bus stop on their clothes? Another voice added. The humiliation was deliberate, orchestrated, each comment building on the last like a symphony of shame. But it was the look on Lily's face that killed me. The dawning understanding that we weren't welcome here, had never been welcome, would never be welcome. Victoria stood there, soaking in her triumph, her engagement party made more memorable by our humiliation. She'd invited us for this, to show her guests how far she'd risen by showing how far I'd fallen. But they didn't know what was coming. None of them did. Eleanor Thornton, sensing blood in the water, moved in for what she clearly thought would be the kill. She positioned herself like a prosecutor before a jury, the crowd her willing audience. You know, Sarah, there's a cautionary tale in your presence here, she began, her voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. You're a living example of what happens when people don't know their place, when they make reckless decisions based on emotion rather than logic. She turned to address the crowd more directly. This is why we maintain standards, why we're selective about our associations. Because when you lower those standards, you end up with, she gestured at us like we were exhibits. This, a single mother who can't provide, dragging a child through life who'll never have the advantages our children enjoy. My mommy provides everything, Lily protested, her voice shaking but determined. Eleanor's smile was poisonous. Oh, sweet child, you don't even know what you're missing. Real provision isn't just food and shelter. It's connections, opportunities, the right schools, the right people. Your mother has robbed you of all of that with her choices. I haven't robbed her of anything, I said, my voice deadly quiet. I've given her values you couldn't buy with all your money. Values? Victoria laughed harshly. Values don't get you into Harvard, Sarah. Values don't open doors. Look around this room. Do you see anyone here who'd hire you for anything other than cleaning their offices? Do you see anyone who'd want their children playing with Lily? The murmur of agreement from the crowd was like a physical blow. William, perhaps feeling he needed to defend his future mother-in-law's performance, decided to escalate. He pulled out his phone with theatrical flair. You know what? Let's settle this with facts. Madison, didn't you tell me you looked up Sarah online? Madison's grin was predatory. I did. Would you like me to share what I found? Please do, William encouraged, and I knew whatever was coming would be carefully curated for maximum damage. Madison pulled out her own phone, reading with false concern. Sarah Chen, 32, divorced. Currently employed by Clean Bright Janitorial Services. Education, online degree from a non-accredited institution. Address, 42B Riverside Projects. That's subsidized housing, isn't it? Annual income, below poverty line. Credit score, stop, I said. But my voice was drowned out by the crowd's mixture of gasps and titters. Child's father, David Chen, whereabouts unknown, no child support received, Madison continued relentlessly. Social services visits, 3 in the past 2 years. Those were wellness checks, I protested. Standard for single parents in our building. But the damage was done. The crowd looked at us with a mixture of pity and disgust, as if poverty might be contagious. Then Victoria delivered what she clearly thought was the coup de grace. She walked over to a table where gifts were displayed and picked up Lily's handmade card. This, she announced, holding it up for everyone to see, is what my sister thinks is appropriate for an engagement gift. A piece of construction paper with glitter glue. She opened it and read in a mocking voice, Dear Aunt Victoria, I hope you have a happy wedding. Love, Lily. The crowd laughed. Not kindly, but with the cruel amusement of those who've never known struggle mocking those who've known nothing else. Victoria made a show of dropping the card in a nearby wastebasket. Some things just don't belong here, but it was my father who delivered the cruelest blow. He'd been silent until now, standing by my mother. But something, perhaps liquid courage, perhaps the mob mentality, prompted him to speak. You want to know the truth, he announced, his voice booming. Sarah isn't just a disappointment. She's a cautionary tale I tell my business associates about how one wrong decision can destroy generations of hard work and reputation. He walked closer, and I could smell whiskey on his breath. We offered to pay for the abortion. We offered to send her away, let her start fresh. But no, she had to keep the baby, had to do the right thing. And look where the right thing got her. The word abortion hung in the air like a poison. I felt Lily's hand tighten in mine, felt her processing what her grandfather had just said. You wanted to. Lily's voice was tiny, broken. You wanted my mommy to not have me? My father didn't even look at her. It would have been better for everyone. That's when my composed, mature 7-year-old daughter finally broke. The tears came in a flood, her small body shaking with sobs that echoed through the ballroom. I wish we never came here, she cried. I wish you weren't my family. You're all mean and horrible, and I hate you. See? Eleanor said coolly. No breeding. Children reflect their upbringing. That's when the champagne glass fell, or was thrown, I never found out which. shattering on the floor in a spray of golden liquid and crystal shards. And that's when we heard it, the low rumble of an engine outside, powerful and distinctive. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a black SUV pulled up to the entrance. Not just any SUV, but a Bentley Bentayga, the kind that whispered power rather than shouting it. The valet rushed to open the door, and out stepped a man in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit, his presence immediately commanding even from a distance. "Who the hell is that?" William muttered, clearly annoyed at the interruption of his fiancée's triumph. But I knew. My heart was pounding because I knew exactly who had just arrived and why. The game was about to change. I stood there, Lily sobbing in my arms, feeling the weight of 200 eyes on us. My mind raced through options, each more hopeless than the last. We could run, flee this ballroom and never look back. We could stay and endure more humiliation, or... "Mommy," Lily whispered through her tears, "can we please go? Please?" Every instinct screamed at me to scoop her up and run, to protect her from further damage, to retreat to our small but safe world where people didn't measure worth in dollars and degrees from the right schools. But then I caught sight of us in one of the ballroom's gilded mirrors, a mother and daughter, clinging to each other while predators circled. Is this what I wanted to teach Lily? That when faced with cruelty, we run? That bullies win if they have enough money and supporters? "Sarah," my mother said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Take the child and go. You're making a scene." "She's making a scene?" I laughed, but it came out cracked. "You just told a room full of people you wished your granddaughter had never been born." "Don't be dramatic," Victoria interjected. "He said abortion, not—" "I know what he said," I cut her off. "Lily knows what he said. Everyone in this room knows what he said." The man from the Bentley had entered the building. I could hear the commotion in the lobby, voices raised in surprise and deference. My phone buzzed in my purse, but I ignored it. "You want to know something?" I said, addressing the room now, my voice stronger. "You're right about one thing. We don't belong here, not because we're poor, not because we take the bus, not because I clean offices. We don't belong here because we have something you've all forgotten existed. Integrity." "Integrity doesn't pay for private school," someone called out, earning laughs. "You're absolutely right," I agreed, surprising them. "Integrity doesn't pay bills. It doesn't buy designer clothes or country club memberships. But it does let you sleep at night knowing you've never stepped on others to rise, never measured someone's worth by their bank account, never told a 7-year-old child she shouldn't exist." The footsteps were getting closer now. Expensive shoes on marble floors. The lobby voices grew more excited, and I heard someone say, "Mr. Jang, here?" My phone buzzed again, insistent. "Sarah?" William said, his patience clearly exhausted. "This is getting tedious. Security can escort you out if necessary." "That won't be necessary," a deep voice said from the ballroom entrance. Everyone turned. The man from the Bentley stood there, and behind him, 2 more people in expensive suits, one carrying a briefcase, the other holding what looked like documents. "I'm looking for Ms. Sarah Chen," he announced, his voice carrying authority that made even Eleanor Thornton step back. "I'm Sarah Chen," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. He smiled then, and it transformed his serious face. "Ms. Chen, I'm James Zhang, CEO of Zhang International. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but when my assistant informed me of your location and situation, I felt my presence was required immediately." The room had gone completely silent. Zhang International was a name everyone knew. A multinational corporation worth billions, with interests in everything from technology to real estate. "I don't understand," Victoria said, her voice uncertain for the first time all day. James Zhang's smile widened. "Then allow me to explain. Ms. Chen, or should I say S. Chen Consulting, has just become our primary strategic partner for Asian market expansion. The contract my lawyers have here is worth 8 figures annually." He paused, letting that sink in. "But more importantly, she's proven to be the most brilliant strategic mind I've encountered in 20 years of business. Which is why I'm here personally to ensure she's treated with the respect she deserves." The silence was absolute. Then Lily, my brave little girl, wiped her tears and asked in a small voice, "Are you talking about my mommy?" James Zhang knelt down to Lily's level, his expensive suit be damned, and spoke directly to her with genuine warmth. "Yes, I'm talking about your incredible mother. Did you know she's been revolutionizing how major companies operate? She's saved businesses millions of dollars and thousands of jobs. Your mommy is a genius, little one." "But they said—" Lily looked around at the frozen faces. "They said she just cleans offices." "I do clean offices," I said quietly. "That's not a lie." James stood, his expression hardening as he surveyed the room. "She does?" "3 nights a week, even though she doesn't need to anymore. Sarah Chen cleans the offices of her own building. The building she bought 6 months ago. The one that houses her consulting firm's headquarters on the top 3 floors." The gasp from the crowd was audible. Victoria's face had gone pale. "That's impossible," my father said, his voice strangled. "We would have known." "Would you?" James asked coldly. "You haven't spoken to her in 5 years. You don't even know that S. Chen Consulting has been featured in Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and Business Week, always declining photos or interviews, maintaining privacy. You don't know that your daughter has 3 PhDs from MIT, Harvard, and Stanford knocking down her door trying to poach her for their think tanks." He pulled out his phone, showing something to those nearest. "This is the Bloomberg article from last week. Mystery consultant saves Fortune 500 company from bankruptcy. That's your daughter, the one you just called a disappointment." My mother sank into a chair. Madison's mouth was hanging open, but it was Victoria whose reaction was most satisfying. She looked like someone had slapped her. But she takes the bus," Victoria said weakly. "By choice," James replied. "She's been donating the money she would spend on a car to the community center that provides after-school programs for kids in her neighborhood. Last month alone, she paid for 30 children to attend summer camp." The lawyer stepped forward. "Ms. Chen, we need your signature on these documents. The board is anxious to announce the partnership Monday morning. Stock prices are expected to jump significantly." "Wait," William said, his business instincts kicking in. "Zhang International is partnering with her? What exactly does her company do?" James looked at him with barely concealed disdain. "Something you'd never understand, Mr. Thornton. She helps companies find their souls again. She shows them how to be profitable while being ethical, how to grow while lifting others. It's revolutionary, and it's why we're paying her more than your pharmaceutical company makes in a quarter." He turned back to me. "Sarah, I know this is awkward timing, but there's more. The car outside, it's yours, the company insisted. And there's the matter of the house in Westchester. The papers are ready for your review." "House?" Lily asked, her tears forgotten. "We're getting a house?" "If your mother approves," James said gently. "It has a pool, a library, and a garden. Perfect for someone who likes to read under trees." How did he know Lily loved reading under trees? Then I remembered. The background check. They'd been thorough. Eleanor Thornton found her voice. "This has to be some sort of mistake or joke." The second lawyer, a woman with sharp eyes, spoke up. "I'm Amanda Crawford from Crawford, Klein and Associates. I assure you, Mrs. Thornton, this is quite real. We've been working with Miss Chen for 18 months. She insisted on keeping her identity private until the deal was finalized. She said, and I quote, 'I want my work to speak for itself, not my name or face.'" "But she's nobody," Victoria burst out, then immediately tried to backtrack. She was nobody. She was never nobody," James said firmly. "She was someone you couldn't see because you were blinded by your own prejudices. She was building an empire while you were judging her circumstances. She was raising an extraordinary child while you were gossiping about her choices." He pulled out a check, showing it to the room. "This is her signing bonus. I won't say the amount, but it has 7 figures before the decimal point. And this is just the beginning." My father stood up, his face red. "Sarah, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. We're family. We should talk." "Now I'm family?" I asked quietly. 5 minutes ago, you wished Lily had never been born." "I was drunk. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I said simply. "You meant every word." And that's fine, because it taught me something valuable. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're struggling, who celebrates your victories, who sees your worth when you're at your lowest. I looked around the room at all these people who delighted in our humiliation. None of you are my family. You're strangers who happen to share some DNA. Sarah, please, my mother started. Be reasonable. We're your parents. No, Lily said, her small voice firm. You're not. Grandparents don't say mean things. Grandparents love you even when you take the bus. Mrs. Chen from downstairs, who watches me when Mommy works late, she's my grandma. Mr. Rodriguez, who taught me chess, he's my grandpa. They're our family. James smiled at that. Wise child. Must take after her mother. But the contract, William said desperately, his business mind spinning. Surely this could benefit from family connections. The Thornton name, James laughed. A genuine, amused sound. Mr. Thornton, your family name is worth less than the paper it's printed on compared to what Sarah brings to the table. She's about to become one of the most sought-after consultants in the world. Companies will wait years just for an hour of her time. The shift in the room was palpable, like watching dominoes fall in reverse. Everyone who'd knocked us down was now scrambling to stand us back up. Sarah, darling, Eleanor Thornton's voice had transformed from acid to honey. I think there's been a terrible miscommunication. What I meant earlier about standards was, I know exactly what you meant. I cut her off. And so does everyone else in this room. Madison pushed forward, her phone already out. Sarah, we should get coffee sometime. Catch up properly. I could introduce you to some people. People? I asked. You mean people worthy of your time now that I have money? She had the grace to flush, but pressed on. I just meant, Madison, 30 minutes ago you called my daughter a charity case. There's not enough coffee in the world to wash that taste away. Victoria approached slowly, her engagement party in ruins around her. Sarah, you're my sister. Surely you can forgive. Forgive? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Victoria, you threw my daughter's handmade card in the trash. You invited us here to humiliate us, to make yourself look better by comparison. You got exactly what you wanted. A memorable engagement party. Just not the memory you planned. William tried a different approach, his voice taking on a wheeling tone. From a business perspective, family partnerships can be extremely lucrative. Jang International and Thornton Pharmaceuticals could nothing, James interrupted firmly. Ms. Chen's company has strict ethical guidelines about partner selection. Companies that price gouge life-saving medications don't make the cut. The crowd was shifting now. Some people edging toward us with calculated smiles, others backing away as if distancing themselves from Victoria and my parents. The social calculus of the room had completely reversed. My brother Michael finally found his courage, or his greed. Sarah, sis, we should talk. The kids should know their cousin. Now they should know her, I asked. When she's useful to you, when she comes with connections and contracts. That's not, he started, but his wife pulled him back, whispering furiously in his ear. My father approached again, this time with tears in his eyes, though I couldn't tell if they were genuine or calculated. Sarah, I'm your father. I made mistakes, but nothing, I said firmly. You made choices. You chose reputation over relationship. You chose appearance over authenticity. You chose to abandon your daughter and granddaughter when we needed you most. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. You can't just cut us off, my mother protested. We're your parents. You cut me off 5 years ago, I reminded her. I'm just making it official. James stepped forward. Miss Chen, we should go. The papers need to be signed, and you have a conference call with Tokyo in 2 hours. Tokyo? Victoria repeated faintly. The beginning of the Asian expansion, James explained. Sarah's strategies are about to transform how business is done across 3 continents. He turned to the room at large. Let this be a lesson to all of you. The person you dismiss today might be the one signing your paycheck tomorrow. The child you call worthless might grow up to change the world. The single mother you mock might be building an empire while you're sleeping. Lily tugged on my hand. Mommy, can we go now? I want to see our new house." "Your new house," Eleanor said desperately. "Surely you'll need help decorating, settling in. I know the best designers." Lily looked at her with those wise 7-year-old eyes. "We don't need your help. My mommy and I are phoenix birds. We rise from ashes, not from handouts." The callback to our private conversation made me squeeze her hand 3 times. She squeezed back. "Mr. Zhang," I said formally, "I'm ready to sign those papers now." As we walked toward the exit, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Some called out congratulations, invitations, apologies, all ignored. Victoria's engagement party had become something else entirely. The public funeral of their assumptions and the birth of our vindication. At the door, I turned back one last time. Victoria stood in the center of her ruined party. William beside her, looking shell-shocked. My parents aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "The saddest part," I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "is that if you had just been kind, just been family, you would have been part of this journey. But you chose cruelty. Now you get to live with that choice." 6 months later, I stood in my office on the 47th floor of the Chen building. Yes, I'd bought the entire building and renamed it, watching the city wake up below. Lily was in the next room, her private study area where she did homework while I worked, attended by the best tutors money could buy, but more importantly, tutors who understood that kindness mattered more than credentials. The Wall Street Journal lay on my desk, its headline reading, "S. Chen Consulting Revolutionizes Corporate Ethics. Profits and principles can coexist." Below was a rare photo of me, taken at the Zhang International Partnership announcement. My phone buzzed. Another interview request, another company begging for consultation, another university wanting me to speak. I ignored them all. Today was Saturday, and Saturdays belonged to Lily. "Mommy," she called out, "Mrs. Chen is here." Mrs. Chen, not my mother, but our neighbor from the projects who'd become our chosen grandmother, entered carrying her famous dumplings. Mr. Rodriguez followed with his chess set. These people, who'd loved us when we had nothing, were the ones who shared our fortune now. Mrs. Chen's medical bills were paid, her grandson's college funded. Mr. Rodriguez's community center had a new building, courtesy of an anonymous donation that wasn't really anonymous. "Any word from them?" Mrs. Chen asked quietly, meaning my biological family. "The lawyers handle the letters," I said. "Requests for money, mostly. Victoria's wedding was called off. Apparently, William's family pulled out after some bad investments. My parents' business is struggling without the Thornton connection." "And you feel—" "Nothing," I said honestly. "They're strangers who taught me valuable lessons about who not to become." The doorbell rang. Our new home's smart system showing James Zhang at the door. He'd become more than a business partner. He'd become a friend. Maybe something more. Lily adored him, especially when he brought his daughter May, who was just a year older than her. "Uncle James!" Lily ran to the door, and I heard his laugh as she launched into a story about her science project. Later, as we all sat around the dining table, Mrs. Chen, Mr. Rodriguez, James, May, Lily, and me, I thought about family. Real family. The kind you choose, the kind that chooses you back, the kind that sees your worth when the world sees your circumstances. "Mommy," Lily said suddenly, "remember the engagement party?" The table went quiet. We'd processed it in therapy, but she rarely brought it up. "I remember, baby." "I'm glad we went," she said, surprising everyone. Because if we hadn't gone, we wouldn't have known how strong we really were, and they wouldn't have learned their lesson. "What lesson is that?" James asked gently. Lily smiled, wise beyond her years. "That phoenixes don't need anyone else's ashes to rise from. We make our own fire." Mrs. Chen wiped away a tear. Mr. Rodriguez raised his juice glass in a toast. "To phoenix birds," he said. "To phoenix birds," we echoed. That night, after everyone had gone home and Lily was asleep, I stood on my balcony looking out at the city lights. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Victoria, 12 from my parents, 23 from various relatives who'd suddenly remembered I existed. I deleted them all without listening. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. It wasn't about revenge, it was about rising. It wasn't about making others feel small, it was about growing too tall for their tiny boxes. But most importantly, success was about teaching your daughter that worth isn't measured in dollars or degrees, but in dignity. That family isn't about blood, but about bonds. That rising from ashes isn't about the falling, it's about the flying that comes after. Somewhere across the city, my biological family was learning what it meant to be on the outside looking in. But I wasn't looking back at them. I was looking forward to boardrooms where ethics would matter, to Lily's graduation from whatever dream she chose to chase, to a future where little girls wouldn't be told they shouldn't exist. The black SUV that had arrived that day at the engagement party hadn't just brought a business deal. It had brought justice. Not the kind that punishes, but the kind that proves that sometimes, just sometimes, good things happen to good people who never stop being good, even when the world gives them every reason to turn bad. And that's a story worth more than all the money and all the bank accounts in the world. They called you nobody until they needed something from you? You're not alone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. Tag someone who rose from their ashes and became their own phoenix.